The corridor lights flickered like they were struggling to stay awake. Private Cal Rourke didn't slow down. His boots pounded the polished obsidian floor of the royal upper tier, breath sharp in his lungs, the message capsule tucked under his arm like it was fused to his ribs. He was 42 seconds behind schedule, and the stellar diplomatic emergency accord didn't make exceptions for mild alien hallway confusion. Theta 9 Command had used words like urgent, fragile, and don't screw this up, Rourke when they handed him the encrypted message. And now here he was, one stairwell detour and a broken grav lift later, running headlong into what could only be described as a decorative nightmare of spires, floating light orbs, and singing wall panels. He turned the corner at full speed and stopped cold. There, blocking the entrance to the ceremonial chamber, stood the Velari Queen, not flanked by guards, not surrounded by attendants or shimmering drones, just standing there. Still as sculpture, alive as war. Her long ears arched upward, catching the light like sculpted crystal. She wore a ceremonial half-cape that shimmered with embedded starlight, actual starlight if you believed the legends. Her gaze locked onto him, not with hostility but with something that felt heavier, denser. Cal's mouth went dry. He knew who she was. Everyone did. Queen Anchora of the Velari Dominion, strategist, diplomat, warrior, mystery. Her face had graced both propaganda leaflets and peace banners across half the spiral arm. Seeing her in person was like being stared at by history itself. She took one step forward, just one. Her boots made no sound. Her eyes, deep violet with flecks of gold, never left his. All I want is you, human. Cal froze, not metaphorically, physically. He wasn't sure if it was shock, fear, or the fact that his brain had just detonated somewhere behind his ears. The message capsule slid halfway down his arm before he caught it again. I'm sorry, what? He croaked. You heard me, she said, and somehow her voice was soft and thunderous at the same time. Cal did what any highly trained human soldier would do in a moment of high-level diplomatic crisis. He blinked, then said, I think I'm supposed to deliver this message before anyone starts confessing intergalactic crushes. Her lips twitched. That could have been a smile or the beginning of a snarl. Honestly, hard to tell with Velari. I'm not here to interrupt your mission, she said, only to pause it. Pausing a time-sensitive diplomatic message seems mildly treasonous, Cal said, stepping forward cautiously. Unless you're planning on helping me fast-track it past 2 security rings and the Grand Speaker's painfully slow biometric scan. Do you always talk this much when confused? Yes, it's part of my charm. She stepped closer. Cal's tactical training reminded him that proximity to a Velari monarch without permission was normally punishable by something sharp and final. But she made no move to stop, no sign of aggression, just presence, powerful and precise. He tried to say something else, anything else. A joke maybe, but his throat had other ideas. You saved my sister once, she said out of nowhere. Cal blinked. What? Her name was Saria. Border conflict. 18 cycles ago. You pulled her from the wreckage of a downed scout crawler and didn't ask for a name. You stayed until the evac drone came, and then you disappeared. He remembered, not the name, but the moment. That night, the wreck, the scream in the dark, the blood green and hot, and the clawed fingers gripping his arm as he sealed the medfoam around a shattered leg. She asked me to find you, Anchora said, to thank you. Well, Cal said, thank her back. I also came because I saw you. His eyebrows lifted. On the battlefield. In the recordings, the way you moved. The way you looked at her, not as an enemy, as someone real. He shifted. Your Majesty, with all due respect, I really need to deliver this before we start unpacking all my accidental heroism. Not yet. I could get court-martialed for this. Not today, she said. Cal opened his mouth, but then she stepped in just close enough for his pulse to spike. What do you want, soldier? She asked. He laughed short and sharp. A drink, a vacation, and for the AI assistant in my quarters to stop asking if I want more meaningful connections. A long pause, Then finally she smiled. It was terrifying and beautiful. "You're honest," she said. "I'm cornered." Still honest. He looked down at the capsule in his hand, then back at her. "So, what is this? A game? Political leverage? Or is this just a deeply inconvenient crush with interspecies implications?" She didn't laugh, but her gaze softened. "I don't know yet," she said, "but I had to say it before you disappeared again. People don't usually confess affection to humans in diplomatic corridors," he said. "You aren't most humans." He sighed. "Can I deliver this message now?" She stepped aside. "Of course." He moved past her slowly, expecting some kind of trap, but there was none, only that voice again behind him. "Rourke." He turned. Her tone was quieter this time. "When you're done, come back." He gave her a look. "You asking as a queen or as a very determined woman with poor timing?" She considered both. Cal stared at her for another beat. Then, against all protocol and better judgment, he nodded. "Okay." Then he turned and walked toward the chamber, heart pounding, the message heavy in his hand, and something even heavier blooming in his chest. Cal Rourke stood in the middle of the Queen's personal library, trying to act like he hadn't just been scanned for weapons, diseases, toxins, emotions, and according to one of the guards, awkward silences. He passed 4 out of 5. The room didn't feel like a library. It felt like a museum had made a deal with a symphony and then gotten high on alien incense. Holographic manuscripts floated midair beside glowing glyphs that rotated slowly, and soft harp-like tones played from some unseen source. There were no books, only memory crystals pulsing with color. Rourke hadn't touched a single one. He didn't plan to. The last time he touched something glowing in an alien palace, he'd lost the feeling in his thumbs for a week. He wasn't entirely sure why he'd come. Anchora had sent a message. Not an official summons, more like a "would you like to talk" where no one's listening and the walls aren't whispering your secrets into political databanks. Kind of request. Naturally, he said yes, which explained why he was currently debating whether to sit on the floating chair or just keep pretending to read the same Velari script over and over. "I didn't think you'd come," said a voice behind him. He didn't jump, not visibly. "I figured you'd appreciate the symmetry," he said. "I interrupted your hallway once. You interrupt my emotional processing space. Fair's fair." She moved into view, slow and precise. Her hair was braided high today, looped around the base of her ears like a crown made of light. Her outfit was less ceremonial than before. Loose armor-weave tunic, wide belt, bare arms marked with subtle tracer lines glowing just beneath the skin. Tactical casual. He wondered how long she'd been watching him before she spoke. "Do humans always use humor when they're uncomfortable?" she asked. "Only the good ones," he said. "The rest punch things." She studied him. "You're different here. Less running, fewer explosives." "No, softer." He scratched the back of his neck. "That's probably the humidity. These memory crystals are a nightmare for dry skin." Anchora smiled faintly, still joking. Still uncomfortable. She crossed her arms and leaned against the wall, which shimmered slightly to accommodate her posture. The palace itself seemed to respond to her like a living thing, organic, loyal, attentive. "You could have just sent an aide," he said, "or a message, or a well-trained hawk. I needed to see you, not your reaction, you." He raised a brow. "I'm flattered, also a little nervous." "I remember you from before," she said, her voice gentler now. "Not just from the recordings." He tilted his head. "How?" "My sister described you, your voice, the way you moved. The hesitation in your hands, like you weren't sure whether saving her would make you a traitor." He sat down, finally. The floating chair adjusted to his weight with a low whir. "I wasn't sure," he admitted. "Why did you do it?" "Because she was bleeding. Because she was scared. Because she looked at me like I was the last thing she'd ever see." "You didn't even speak to her." "I didn't know what to say. I'm not great with moments." "And yet you keep finding yourself in them." "Yeah, it's starting to feel like a setup." A pause. Then she walked over to the nearest memory crystal and placed her palm gently against it. The glyphs inside shifted, revealing a static image of her younger laughing with her sister. Not royal, not armored, just alive. She used to say humans were strange, Anchura said. Unpredictable, violent, yes, but curious. She liked that. We are pretty good at being weird, Rourke admitted. Once I met a guy who trained raccoons to detect plasma leaks. What's a raccoon? Night gremlin, eats garbage, smarter than half the diplomatic corps. She looked intrigued. Why train such a creature? Because people trust animals more than they trust protocol. She nodded slowly, as if filing that away. Another silence passed between them, comfortably this time. I've spent years fighting to hold this empire together, she said. Smiling at assassins, negotiating with warlords, pretending that I don't dream about dropping it all and becoming a trader on some wind-blasted moon, where the only diplomacy is over who makes better tea. You get bored. Possibly. Definitely. She smiled again. And you, what do you dream about? He hesitated. Once I wanted to be a mechanic, just fixing things, real things, not politics, not hearts. You don't think people can be fixed? I think some things get damaged too quietly to ever really see the cracks. Even so, she said, walking toward him, you still try. He looked up at her. Is that what this is? Trying to fix something? No, she said. This is me realizing something isn't broken. That stopped him. They were close now, not touching but within the space where every breath felt shared. The air smelled faintly of ozone and desert flowers. I can't promise anything, he said. I don't even know what this is. Neither do I, she replied. But I know that I don't want it to disappear. His eyes searched hers. Do your people know you're here? They know I follow my own will. That's dangerously romantic. She leaned down just slightly. So is asking a queen to wait while you deliver a message. I didn't ask you to wait. And yet I did. He exhaled slowly. This isn't supposed to happen. We're from different sides, different species, different everything. And yet here we are. I'm not what you expect. You're exactly what I hoped. Her hand brushed his barely, but it was enough to short-circuit logic, enough to ignite memory. I'm scared, he admitted. I'm not, she replied. I was, but not anymore. The room hummed around them, the crystals pulsing in sync, as if echoing some silent frequency they'd both tuned into. Then she pulled back just slightly, enough to breathe. Come back tomorrow, she said. Why? To learn who we are when no one's watching. He hesitated, then stood. I'll bring tea. Human tea. Terran Blackleaf, bitter, honest, unapologetic. She smiled, fitting. And just like that he left, heart louder than his footsteps, breath caught between hesitation and hope. He checked the small, portable signal unit clipped to his belt. No comms, no map, no digital signatures. If she decided to turn around and stab him with some sort of ceremonial dagger, the only record of his death would be a suspiciously empty tea appointment slot in the royal calendar. Do you bring all your suitors down here, or am I special? He said, hoping humor would keep the mood from sinking too far into ancient Truanzen murder territory. She stopped in front of a tall, narrow doorway carved with Velari script. You're not a suitor, she said. He raised his hands. Okay, noted. You're not just a suitor, she corrected. Oh, well, that's either comforting or confusing. I brought you here because this is the only place in the palace not bound by memory crystal surveillance. So a first date with total plausible deniability. She turned toward him, one eyebrow raised. Would you like to make it a date? He stared at her. I was joking. I was. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Noted, he said finally. She stepped through the doorway and he followed, trying not to look too much like someone internally screaming. The room beyond was simple, stone floor, old-style Velari sitting cushions, and a gently humming machine in the center. It looked like a cross between an engine core and an incense burner. That's a memory anchor, she said, sitting gracefully. Okay, Rourke said, cautiously taking a seat across from her. And I'm assuming that's not the same thing as a really clingy ex. She gave him a flat look. It records memories, but only when two people share them at the same time. That's weirdly poetic. It was designed by a poet-scientist. They died testing it. So a classic Valari love story. Tragedy, tech, and moderately justified existential dread. She smiled faintly, then gestured to the anchor. Place your hand on it. Is it going to electrocute me? Only if you lie. He stared at her. She didn't blink. Still joking, he said. I know, she replied, mostly. He sighed and pressed his hand to the cool surface. She did the same. A soft pulse rippled outward like a breath. The hum deepened, then something shifted. Suddenly, he wasn't in the room anymore. He was standing on a battlefield. The air was thick with smoke. The sky glowed purple-blue with atmospheric plasma surges. He wore old armor, his first deployment suit. And ahead of him, amid the wreckage of a downed crawler, a Valari woman was screaming. Saria, he whispered. The memory played out, not like a recording but like reliving a dream in perfect clarity. He saw himself crawl through wreckage, dragging her out, sealing wounds with trembling hands. Heard himself whisper, "You're gonna be fine," even though he had no reason to believe it. And then he saw her eyes, terrified, not of death, but of him. He backed away from the memory, heart pounding, and the vision faded. He was back in the undervault, sweat clung to his spine. "That's how she saw me," he said. "Yes," Anchora replied quietly, "but it's also how you changed that vision." He looked at her. "I didn't know you could share that." "She asked me to. She wanted you to understand what it meant to be saved by someone you were trained to hate." He nodded slowly. "That day messed with me too." "I know." She reached out, gently resting her fingers over his wrist. Not a romantic gesture. Not a political one, just human. "Want to see one of mine?" she asked. He hesitated. "Do I need protective gear?" "No, just trust." "That's much scarier." She smiled. "Exactly." They touched the anchor again. This time the memory opened to a Valari war council. She stood at the center, younger, still royal but less composed. Around her, voices argued. "Peace is weakness," one said. "They'll never see us as equals." Another shouted, "Even if she spares the humans, they will never spare her." And she stood silent. The scene changed. A hospital, Valari children with burned scars, a human medic moving carefully through them, bandaging without speaking. One child, barely 5, hugged the human's leg. Anchora's voice just outside the memory. "I saw that and I knew. War was easier. Peace required too much courage." They returned to the vault again. Her face was unreadable. He leaned forward gently. "I get it now," he said. "Why you said what you said." "I meant it." "I know." She looked down at the anchor. "This thing's addictive." "I can see why. Also mildly terrifying. I feel like it just peeled me like an onion, and read my middle school poetry." She laughed, actually laughed. He blinked. "Okay, wow, that was worth the emotional trauma." She looked up, still smiling. "You keep disarming me." "I'm unarmed." "Exactly." They sat in silence for a long time. No duty. No palace. Just two people who should have been enemies but somehow ended up sharing the most vulnerable pieces of themselves through a device made by a poet who died trying. Finally, she said, "I've ordered my personal guard to stand down for an hour." Rourke raised a brow. "Should I be honored or deeply worried?" "You should be honest." "Okay," he exhaled. "I don't know what this is between us. But I know I don't want it to stop." Her gaze held his. "Then don't let it." He nodded. "Want to go get terrible palace coffee?" he asked. "Is there any other kind?" They stood together and left the undervault, the memory anchor slowly dimming behind them. Not erased, just paused, waiting for the next page. The stars were different from this angle. Cal Rourke leaned against the inner observation deck rail of the Royal Launch Bay, watching as distant moons drifted through the cold void. Behind him, tech crews buzzed like bees in a sacred hive, checking systems, recalibrating defensive nodes, prepping for departure. The Queen's flagship was readying for launch, and Rourke was doing what humans were best at during moments of galactic tension, panicking quietly. A diplomatic envoy from the Intergalactic Accord had just arrived, and in true bureaucratic fashion, they brought exactly one thing: ultimatums. The terms were simple. Either the Velari Dominion and the Terran Alliance would finalize their co-defense pact, or all support from the Accord would be withdrawn, and the rogue systems would carve up their remains like a buffet of broken empires. "Fun, you should be in the war room," came a voice beside him. Rourke didn't have to look to know who it was. "I'm hiding," he admitted, strategically. "You're hiding from a treaty signing. I'm hiding from making a decision I'll have to live with." Anchora stepped beside him, her reflection ghosting in the glass. She wore full ceremonial battle regalia this time: radiant chestplate, soft-sheathed blade at her hip, and the queen's crest flaring at her collar like fire molded into silk. Her ears twitched slightly, always the first tell when her composure cracked. "They want you to speak," she said. "I figured. They want the symbol, the human who crossed the battlefield to save a Velari life, the one who refused to stay an enemy." He rubbed his jaw. "I'm just a soldier who made one decent choice." "Exactly," she said. "That's why it matters." He turned to face her. "What if I say the wrong thing?" "You won't." "I might trip over my own words and accidentally declare war on the Brelan Confederacy. They would probably appreciate the attention." He laughed short and low. "You always do that." "Do what?" "Make the impossible feel like maybe it is." She studied him, violet eyes calm and steady. "That's because you make me believe it is." The room went quiet again, except for the muffled hum of launch clamps disengaging and the whisper of plasma conduits regulating flow. Outside, a defense cruiser turned its orbit, bringing the rogue fleet's last known location into range. "You know what I realized?" Rourke asked. "I'm not afraid of what comes next because of politics, or consequences, or battle. I'm afraid of what happens if I let myself believe in something real, something that doesn't have armor." Anchora reached out and took his hand. No ceremony, no audience, just skin and skin. "You already do," she said. The words landed harder than a gunshot. He looked down at their joined hands. "You told me once you didn't know what we were." She nodded. "I still don't, but I know what we could be. And if we fail, then we fail together." A long beat passed. Then the intercom crackled. "Sergeant Rourke, Queen Anchora, Treaty Council Chamber is ready. Time sensitive. Please stop making the diplomats nervous." "Sounds like our cue," he muttered. "After you," she said. "No way. You're the terrifying monarch with political gravitas. I'm just the arm candy." She smirked. "You wear the title well." They walked side by side into the chamber. The room was a fusion of both cultures: Velari light columns and Terran steel. Banners of opposing crests hung side by side, and the central dais split by a glowing sigil representing unification. No one spoke as they entered. All eyes turned, some surprised, some tense, a few hopeful. A Terran official stepped forward. "Sergeant Rourke, would you say a few words before the signing?" Cal nodded, palms suddenly sweaty. He stepped up to the podium, cleared his throat, and immediately regretted every life decision that led to this moment. Hi. The silence could have cracked moons. He tried again. "Sorry, public speaking was never my thing. Usually when I talk, it's in a field hospital or behind cover. But today, I'm not hiding behind anything." He paused, met eyes with Celia, no with Anchora, and continued. "Years ago, I pulled someone out of a battlefield because I couldn't stand to see another life lost. I didn't know her name. I didn't ask what side she was on. I just knew she mattered." Murmurs stirred, but no one interrupted. "I never thought I'd see her again, but I did. And somehow, in a galaxy full of division and blood and broken promises, we found something rare. We saw each other, really saw each other." A breath. "I'm not asking you to believe in treaties, or flags, or logos on datapads. I'm asking you to believe that connection across lines isn't impossible. That peace isn't just policy, it's people." The chamber was silent. Then the Queen stepped up beside him. My people once called humans chaotic, illogical, dangerous. Chuckles from both sides. They were right, she added, but they also said you were capable of unexpected beauty, of compassion without expectation, of saving someone without knowing why. She looked at Rourke. I've built an empire on discipline, strategy, strength, but today I choose something else. I choose the unknown, I choose the human. Gasps rippled across the hall. She turned back to the crowd. I choose unity. And with that she reached for the stylus, signed the pact. Rourke followed. The room erupted. Applause, relief, some laughter. And beneath it all a quiet knowing that the war might not be over, but a battle had been won. A different kind of battle. Later, after the crowd dispersed and the flashes stopped and the Accord ship launched, Cal and Anchora stood once more at the deck rail, side